Buenos dias, namaskar, buonasera, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, and welcome to this exclusive webinar on employee experience in a hybrid world. We hope with this program we can help you reflect, learn, and explore new critical skills for learners to engage, align, and improve their employee experience for distributed teams. My name is Cindy Scholz, and I'm part of the BeNext team at People Matters. And we have the huge privilege to have Temitope Sadiku joining us today. Now, Topi is the global head of digital employee experience at the Kraft Heinz company, a board member on IWAE, a board member on ISTCI, and she's on the board of YWCA Women in Tech Council. So I'd say we're in very good company. Topi, it's so good to see you again and to have you with us today.
Oh, Sydney, by the way, you always amaze me. You're so talented. Every time we speak, you tell me something new. I did not know. Were you speaking Spanish? Was that?
I think so. I think it was, Buenos dias is Spanish.
I do enjoy it about you so
I don't
much.
literally speak all the languages, but still. Okay. With employee experience moving away from personal and individual focus, there's a need to accommodate the environment that the employee is operating in, which means considering the family, the location, the work infrastructure, etc. But how do we engage an impactful, outstanding employee experience that aligns with our new hybrid reality? So all of this will be discussed in the upcoming People Matters BeNext certification program on employee experience in a hybrid world, which is starting on July 19th. We'll be discussing these takeaways and much, much more, hoping to understand better the importance of leveraging information, listening to our people, and delivering an optimized experience in a hybrid world of work. So, Topi, are you ready for some questions?
Most definitely so. Let's go.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. All right. So my first question is going to be a pretty personal one. What do you personally think of hybrid?
I think hybrid, at least for me, okay, so if I stand back and I reflect on Topi pre-pandemic and Topi, let's say pandemic, because we're still not out of the situation.
We're still in it.
Yeah. We're still in it for sure. I recognize that there's been an increased focus on my own individual well-being, and this is personally for me. So I like to wake up, I like to be able to work out, I like to be able to, I study and I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I consume a lot of audio content. I like to be able to move. I like to be able to do certain things at different times. And back to your original question about what does the hybrid office mean to me personally, it gives me the ability to kind of thrive as my authentic self. The reason I was asking you about the languages in the beginning is that, hey, that's even you authentically, right? And there's different things that we're all curious about and different things that we lean to. There's different rhythms in our bodies. Some people are more curious in the morning. Some people have bursts of energy in the afternoon. Some people have bursts of energy in the evening. But what the hybrid office, or let's say an asynchronous office, allows is for us to kind of match our rhythm to our location and to an objective and be more mindful of that. Some may also say, but Topi, shouldn't working in a physical location in an office 5 days a week, shouldn't that also kind of give you the same leaning into your wellness and your well-being? I think yes, so. But sometimes you need to kind of get outside in nature and think and talk and look around to get inspired and creative. And I think the hybrid office has really allowed me that luxury.
Yeah, to do more outside. Absolutely, I agree. And it for me as well, it helped to make sure, because I don't have to commute back and forth. That gave me that extra time to walk the dog and to get some.
And sometimes walking, I have some of my right now in Chicago, it's really early in the morning. I have been awake probably for about 4 or 5 hours. There are certain times I want to have a certain call with someone about a project or something that we're ideating on, or maybe a wicked problem. And the best time for me to do that is in the morning when it's so fresh, it's still, it's quiet. I can go out with the dog, just grab my coffee and walk and think. And that is what the hybrid office facilitates, right? When technology allows people to be effective, irrespective of their geographical location, irrespective of their device, and we can be very well connected in this kind of harmonious way. Well, then I think that's great. We should never lose that.
Absolutely, I agree. But why is it so critical? Why is this such a critical time to redesign employee experience? Why now?
Most definitely so, because I think what I've recognized since this pandemic, let's say in the last 18 to 24 months, probably 18 months, is previously we would say business objective happens in a physical location, and location and objective are very linked together. And actually that there was this idea that employees are going to be productive in an office, they need to be observed, management by observation. And actually, if we think about what's happened now, is that we've been able to separate objective from location. So we're talking about in a work context, but for most of the people who are watching, your home has been the school for your children. Maybe it's been your gym. Maybe it's been a bar where you've virtually socialized with friends. It's been your office where you've problem solved. It's been your office where you've collaborated with your colleagues. And then it's also played the part of your home. And that is why I think this time is the most important time to be cognizant of enhancing that employee experience in a hybrid model. Because now we've been able to separate location from physical location from objective. And if that is the case, then how do we ensure that we create an experience where people can thrive and be their best selves? I know that sounds quite philosophical, but it's very important, right? How do we encourage and enable people to stay in their flow, feel productive, and feel purpose-driven, irrespective of location?
Yeah, and that brings me, it's a beautiful bridge to the next question. So what are your personal thoughts on space versus place?
Yeah. I really like the idea of space versus place. Right now, I'm looking at the river. And when I think about place, okay, I'm in a physical room. There's 4 walls, and it's quantifiable, right? It's finite. Unless we move walls, we can't really increase or reduce this place. However, if I think of a space, if you see to the left of me, there's like a sofa. I have some books on the right hand side. I've got a little desk if I want to like sit and work. And then I have my like office desk right here. And there are different spaces in this room, and they create like different, or they enable me to have like different modes of work in this one location. And when I think about space versus place, I think about, well, how do we create spaces that are transient and they're less finite, bound and rigid, and they kind of are whatever they need to be at one point in time. I actually really like the idea of office spaces that are quite malleable, and they enable like the different modes of work, whether it be like deep focused work, collaborative work, creative work. How do we have this like 4 walls, this finite place, but it can be different spaces? I'm really just curious about that.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible in an office environment?
Most definitely so. In fact, in Kraft Heinz, that's what we're looking at now. We've got an agenda looking at our return to office, and it's called return to office, but we know that the office will be different. Even people's expectations of work is different. How we work is different based on this 18-month experiment that we've run. And looking at how we're thinking about how do we rethink our spaces? How do we create spaces where people can collaborate and feel creative and inspired, where people, irrespective of their geographical location, whether you're in the physical office or you're remote at home, you feel connected? I genuinely believe it is possible. And I think we're doing such a fantastic job of that at Kraft Heinz. I'm really, really excited by this return to office, back to our main offices. This rethinking of the space is really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, our audience can learn a lot more on this subject during the course, but what do you think the future of employee or workplace experience is going to look like?
I think that human-centered design, first and foremost, excuse me, well-being, like these are topics that maybe they maybe felt like secondary, but now they are leading. Put the human first, really. Like, why are you here? What is it? What are your objectives? What is your individual purpose, and how does that relate to the organization? What does it look like when you are in a flow state? And how do we kind of keep you in that flow state and help you understand like your flow state? How do I give you time to feel productive and effective and efficient, but also give you time to feel creative and inspired, and allow you to kind of be your true authentic self at consistently, irrespective of where you are? I think there's a huge leaning into authenticity and well-being. And when I think about the future of employee experience, that I just see like people first. In some circles, I describe myself as like a corporate doctor. And in the same way, a patient comes into a doctor's office, the doctor doesn't immediately say, okay, patient, I haven't even seen or heard, but we're going to amputate your leg. The doctor sits. Actually, a good doctor will sit, will listen, well, spend a lot of time listening and observing. And really, when I think about how we design employee experience, it is with that same mindset, with the human first, knowing that I am the doctor, let's say, I'm going to have this lifelong relationship with my patient. And I know, like, let's say the natural life cycles of being a human. So I know maybe you get a bit older, we want to kind of do some like preventative, we want to be doing some preventative care in anticipation of like age. Well, that's the same type of journey. And for me, that's when I think about successful employee experience, it would be that human first. And then the digital part of my role looks at how I use my technology portfolio, my technology toolkit, as like my medication. So sometimes I might want to listen. Maybe we're going to just talk. Sometimes we're going to tweak medication. Maybe sometimes we're going to totally replace medication. Maybe we're going to operate, but there are so many different ways. Technology is the means by which we deliver that employee experience, but it certainly doesn't lead. The human first, human-centered design leads, for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love how you say that, ask the questions, listen to the humans, and to create that flow state. I love that word, flow state. Brilliant one. Okay, so how do we, in your opinion, go about assessing our current state and defining our desired state from an employee experience perspective? How do you assess the gaps and prioritize where to get started?
So I actually love this question. It's getting me quite excited because we've been running these like discovery sessions. We call them ethnographies, but really they are discovery sessions where we bring a group in and we will say, okay, how do you work today? Help me understand how you work today. What are your rituals and routines? What are the objectives of this role or your team or your function or your project? Help me understand like what a month, a quarter, a year, how do you think of time? And then let's talk about what does the future look like forget about barriers and boundaries that you know of today. If you could describe the optimum state for your team, your position, your function, what does that look like? Now, what I really love about that is the way someone describes the future today. I mean, we could say, oh, in 1 or 2 years, I want to be here. It's possible we will be there, but we're not like fortune tellers, right? So it's just the best guess. But what I love about asking that question is that you really understand how people describe their future. Somebody might say, I want a promotion. Someone might say, I want to be healthier. Somebody might say, I want to work in this location. I want this project delivered. When you have such an open-ended question, it's so interesting listening to how groups describe that. And then we can begin to say, okay, let's kind of like talk about the journey to get there. Where are the gaps? What are the things we can do today? What are the things we should be doing in like 3 months, 6 months? And what I love about that entire conversation is that it's less about what specifically is said and getting specific to that point, but how it's described and what are the things that are important and what are the things that a group lights up about and that they feel like, you know, the barriers and where are the bits where they just sound so excited about. And yeah, I would say starting with that discovery session. Where are you today? Where do you want to be in the future? And like less about very prescriptive about this future state, but more about how it's described and who are the people that they talk about and like what are the things that they talk about achieving in that optimum state and what's a time frame on that. That's the interesting part.
The optimum state. I love that. Well, and I love how you say what would be a perfect world.
Yeah.
Or perfect work world. Just even though you know that some of the things are probably not going to happen, but let's talk about what it would look like to get a good idea. Brilliant. Okay, so what are some of the biggest employee experience spoilers? How can we think innovatively of alternate ways to solve those spoilers?
So we've been doing a lot of work now on this concept of, we call it design to delight, but it is around that human-centered design. And right now we're taking actually our entire IT family on a journey of understanding these human-centered, and in fact, like design thinking is one of the very clear methodologies that we're applying in this space. Like human-centered design, problem solving using design thinking, using empathy maps where you say, what does this group say? How do they feel? What do they do? You know, really putting yourselves into the feet or the shoes of your, we call it end user, but really like the person you're trying to solve for. And the reality is we all know how to do this. we all have relationships, maybe romantic relationships, friendships, even a relationship with the person who works at the coffee store, the bakery. We are all able to kind of like maintain these relationships. And it's that same way. Like, you spend time getting to know a person, you spend time watching them, you spend time really putting yourself into their feet and finding similarities. And I think employee experience is not actually that complex if we boil it down to really what we're trying to do. We want to make sure that it's a harmonious experience. I like to describe employee experience as, I might have a red sofa, a green carpet, pink walls. Technically, I have all of the things that it takes to have a room, but does that work? Is that like a nice harmonious experience? And that is what we're trying to create. Everything has to be more than just technically sound, but people have to feel delighted. And in order to make people feel delighted, well, let's use design thinking to really get to the core of what that person is trying to achieve, what is important to them. And then actually an even easier way to think of it is, how do I manage my regular relationships? How do I know what my partner, my children, my friends, my siblings, my parents, how do I know what they care about? Well, I spend time putting myself into their shoes.
Yep, that would be it. Brilliant. So what is your one piece of advice for leaders looking to create a truly exceptional employee experience, apart from joining our program, where we'll have more of you and more of other experts that tell their tale? But
yeah, which I 100%, by the way, I think it's a fantastic program. So for sure, that's like practical tips. I would say as a starter for 10, as they call it, or a starting place, if I'm not to use like a phrase that's just very localized, really mapping out that employee journey, the employee life cycle, mapping out that like employee journey, and then understanding the moments of truth or the moments that matter. Now, if I put that in a more relatable term, in your life, like the employee life cycle, the employee journey, let's say that's a lifetime as a human being. And there's a bit just before you're born, like the whole preconception stage. And then there's the legacy after somebody passes away. And that can also apply to an employee, right? There's the bit before you hire an employee. How do they find out about you? How do you kind of bring them through that recruitment phase? And how do you actually get them to think that this is somewhere that I want to be? You both have to have that. You work for me and I also work for you. And then what happens when they leave the company? And that could be during the career, that could be at retirement, but what happens at the end? And if we look at a regular life, we can then say, okay, well, in a life, there are like moments of truth, moments that matter. There's the day you are born. There's probably like the day you have your first, memory of you ride a bike or something like that. Maybe then you go to school, you go to university. Maybe you may get married, you may have children, you may get a great job. There are these key pillars. And I'm sure now, if everybody just stops and takes 30, 60 seconds and thinks on their life, there are key pillars that you just remember, even from like your childhood. And that's important in the employee journey as well. Like really, where are those moments that matter? And how do we really leave an impactful experience at those moments that matter? Because, okay, I've spoken about birth. I've spoken about first day at school. You can have a great or a terrible first day at school. These are like key pillars. And how do you make sure that we really are intentional about creating a delightful experience at these moments that matter?
Yep. And by that you mean the onboarding, the hiring.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The day I start, the day I meet my team, the day I have a big project, maybe the day I move into a new function, as I take on it, I get promoted. The day a piece of software breaks, my laptop doesn't work. You can turn any situation around. And there's some really interesting research coming out of Disney as well. They call them Disney delighters. And I would encourage people to just do some research on that, because Disney do a fantastic job at nailing these moments that matter.
Brilliant. Yeah, I heard the other day that Disney also has like 4 pillars, but one trumps the other. So they have like safety on top, and then they have, I think it was customer experience second, and efficiency, and then whatever it is they do, they always think, okay,
what can I compromise?
Yeah, and what pillar does it fall under? So if we want everybody to have a brilliant experience, but if they throw their hands in the air and be dangerous, and when they're doing dangerous stuff, then they can actually not be nice to those people, because safety is like the top thing. So that trumps the client satisfaction and I really love that. Yeah, absolutely. So how would you describe EX and its connection with employee engagement and business productivity and return of shareholders? In your personal opinion, what is different and what is the same in the context of remote and hybrid versus office-based teams, if
Mm,
there even is a difference?
yeah, I think if I think about my own life, I know that when I feel great, everything around me just seems to work well. I seem to be able to exercise a lot better. Everything I read I'm able to retain it, and it seems so much more interesting. My interactions with people that I care about are fantastic, and I feel so like surrounded just by great people, even the ones that I don't know. I feel like everybody's smiling and everybody's happy. And I also know on the flip side, when I don't feel great, when there certain things don't create great experiences, and I'm sure people can probably relate. It feels like everything is just one bad thing after another. So let's talk about that in like a work context. When we create a great employee experience and all of a sudden everything else kind of just makes sense and works well. I think I saw a quote by Richard Branson, and I hope I don't butcher it. He talks about like happy employees make happy customers, and happy customers create shareholder wealth. And actually, the reality is, it's possible to be great for people, the planet, and for profit. I'm a huge believer of all three being able to work in harmony. I don't have to compromise one. And if I lean into that even further, if we talk about a great employee experience, how do I enable people to connect with their colleagues, share and receive information, trust the device, even to the point that, like, you pick up your iPhone, you make a call, you don't think, is this phone going to fall apart in my hands? You trust like the device or the means by which you're trying to achieve something. And that's all part of that employee experience. And when we can remove the friction in work and just the friction in the ability to achieve an objective, people feel better, people feel more engaged. In fact, people feel more connected to the organization. And then all of a sudden, there's opportunities for creativity and inspiration and synergies that we could not even predict.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for both hybrid teams, remote teams, or office-based teams,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, that's right.
There is not a huge
There's
difference
not,
there.
yeah, I don't think what I hear is that there's been a leveling of the playing field. Previously, maybe people felt like, okay, if everyone is in an office, the experience is different if I am dialed in remotely. Now we are all remote, and it's this like ubiquitous, equal experience. And I'm a big believer that we can create the same type of experience even when people go back to the office. That's where the technology comes in, right? To remove those barriers that previously existed in the past. But it
And
should.
everybody has experienced it now, so
That's
I think
right.
everybody has a lot more respect for
That's right.
everybody else. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, and can you share your thoughts on how we can make redefining EX consistent with the company culture and ethos?
Yeah, I think creating some basic principles. You just said, Cindy, about respect, and I think respect and empathy and integrity, they're like three basic values, principles that if you get them, you cannot go wrong. If you are so mindful of respect, integrity, and empathy, if we can keep those three values, then nothing, we don't go wrong. And I think when it comes to enhancing an employee experience, even if it's an employee experience or creating a product for a customer, creating a service for a customer, I don't know, creating a hotel, whatever it is we're trying to create, if we keep respect, integrity, and God, I forgot empathy, we cannot go wrong. And that's what I would say to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right. Thank you so much, Topi. Now, with this program, we want to offer tools and insights for the leaders joining us to make sure their teams can thrive in a virtual world just as well, or even better, maybe, as they did in a fully office-based environment, and how to make the employee experience a great one. So this program will be very beneficial for leaders and companies that have already started making changes and just want some guidance, but also for leaders who are just getting started navigating their way through this hybrid world and want to know how to manage this new era and how to do it differently. So, Topi, would you like to share any closing words of advice for practitioners embarking on the journey of mastering these skills?
Yeah. I would say extend grace to yourself and to others. We're all on a journey. We're all trying to figure out. Nobody knows. We have all of these variety of experiences and just different ways we've been raised, different exposures, extending grace to yourself, like you're trying to do the best you can, and also extending grace to others. Really, that is like the bit of advice. It's challenging. You're trying to manage a number of different people, a number of different expectations, and it's true that not one size fits all. So really, grace to yourself and to others that you're trying your best.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you again, Tuppy, for joining us for this great conversation. And indeed, if we as companies want to survive in a hybrid environment, we need to create the best possible employee experience possible to attract and most importantly, retain talent with like Tuppy just said, respect, integrity, and empathy. I love those three. So if you want to know more about actionable ways to create the best possible employee experience for your hybrid team, we truly hope you will join us for this program, which will start on July 19th. You can sign up with my colleagues on the website. Go through the program and register, and we have a lot more great programs coming up as well. So please check them out and register and join us for your next journey on employee experience. Thank you so much for your time. Please stay safe, stay healthy, be kind to one another, and until we meet again. Thank you, Tuppy.
Oh, my pleasure.